Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Dr. Shealy, are you blissed? So, class, just before the broadcast started, I mentioned to Dr. Shealy, I'm all excited. He's going to be coming to the farm, and we're going to be doing some, target shooting, handgun shooting here at the farm. We're going to have some fun this weekend. And I said, Dr. Shealy, did you ever see those dents in the kitchen wall where Mike Ma came and he did some home invasion training, and he said, I've been to the kitchen, but I haven't seen those dents. I said, well, I'll show them to you when you come this weekend. And so I was telling Dr. Shealy that I still have scars, and from when I've been shot with these wax bullets. So what we did, class, just to recap. Mike Ma was in town. He was up from Guatemala, and he's a USA Preparedness instructor, a combat Marine, and he was, and only 10% of the Marines actually are in combat. So, when someone says a Marine, that doesn't mean that they've been involved in combat. But he was a combat Marine, and still is a Marine. A Marine is a Marine, and they don't seem to lose that designation or that feeling or that training that they've had. So Mike Ma's a Marine. And he decided that Vinny and family and a few other instructors needed to have some training with what a home invasion is like. So what he did was he said, okay, let's get some guns and, put them on the kitchen table here at the farmhouse in Missouri. So we had some shotguns. We had some revolvers. We had some automatic pistols, 9mm, 45s, all kinds of pistols, rifles. I'm sorry, not rifles, shotguns and revolvers. And so he spread them out on the kitchen table and said, okay, pick whatever you'd like. And so take two. And whatever, and you and your son will take two each, and we'll take whatever's left. But you guys pick first. So, so I was thinking that 45 would be good, and a revolver would be good, like a .357. My son picked a 9mm and 38 special. And so the other guys took some shotguns and some handguns. And they said, I'll tell you what we'll do. It's kind of warm outside, so we'll open the side door, the back door, the front door. And what we'll do is we'll ring the doorbell. We don't have a doorbell, but equivalent of ring the doorbell, and then 30 seconds later we'll come in. It's okay. So my son and I were sitting at the kitchen table, and we're waiting, and we didn't hear the doorbell. We didn't hear a knock, no sound at all. And instead of coming in the front door, which they said they were going to do, three guys came in from each in a different door simultaneously. So they synchronized their watches, and and nobody said, "Hey, this is a home invasion. Hands up." All they did was start shooting. They walked in and started shooting. And what were we wearing? Well, we had these face masks on that you might wear if you were in a paintball contest, to protect your eyes. But the rest of the attire was blue jeans and a T-shirt. Now, I was getting dressed for this in the kitchen, and I went into the closet and I put my rider jacket on. It's a denim, kind of a heavy denim jacket. And Mike Ma said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm just getting ready. And he goes, no, you don't understand. No, you have to experience this. You have to wear a T-shirt, and you have to feel the pain. Well, my son had holes in his T-shirt. Not before, after, during. So these wax bullets they're like crayon wax. It's not like they're these soft, pliable. These are crayon wax. And when you get hit with one of those, you really remember. And Mike Ma wanted to make sure that we experience the full terror of being involved in a shootout where you where you feel this pain. So in the kitchen, we have wallboard with dents in it. Now, there's no blood spatter in the kitchen, but, it didn't look quite like an operating room, but there was blood. And I was bleeding, my son was bleeding, and we were wounded. I mean, it really hurt. So we're not going to do that, Dr. Shealy, but I will show you where the shootout at the Finelli farm occurred. And we'll teach you, when you come, we'll teach you some of the things that you need to know about how to open the door and those kinds of things. And believe me, it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And once you go through that, you're not going to want to get shot again. And that was the point. So
my enthusiasm is remarkable.
So we're going to have some fun this weekend when you come, and so I'm really looking forward to it. So, Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments you'd like to share about anything that's happening in your life, your practice, or anything at all?
Well, I've decided to write a new book, Conscientiousness, the Key to Health, Happiness, Health, and Longevity.
I love it.
I actually spent a lot of time this weekend. I printed off over 800 pages of articles to scan through for references, etc. But the interesting thing is, I did find great evidence that the least conscientious people among us are those with the greatest illness, whether it's diabetes or coronary artery disease or cancer. In general, vast majority of diseases among those people who just are not conscientious.
Okay, and for those who might not have heard our discussion prior to this about conscientious behavior, we're talking about people who plan, who are deliberate, who have actions that they expect certain outcomes, and they do things to be to get those positive type outcomes. Meaning, if you don't want to open the refrigerator and say, "Man, there's nothing to eat," well, you do something before that. Right.
Well, interestingly, I think I've mentioned this before, but we've been doing this research study on diabetics and diabetic neuropathy. 30% of these people who schedule a free evaluation don't show up with no call, no cancellation. And that's irresponsibility at its height. But that means that's why they have diabetes. They don't pay attention to themselves either.
Well, I've got a piece of anecdotal evidence. So I bought this old Mercedes, this 1996 Mercedes a couple of years ago. And the guy that I bought it from was a little bit overweight. Actually, he was a little more than a little bit overweight. And he admitted it. And he said he was, kind of heavy. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you call in Dr. Shealy? I know can help you. I know it. And so here's the number. And I wrote it down for him. I gave him all the information, when to call, the phone number. I told him I'll put him on immediately. He can ask all his questions. He's never called. Now, I'm not trying to beat this man up. I'm just trying to say, maybe he's got, a fear of calling into a radio broadcast. And I understand that. I really do, because I was as nervous as could be when I started broadcasting. Okay, so I understand that. But his health is involved. And then I said, well, at least, I said, do you have diabetes? And he said, yeah, he's got type 2. And I said, okay. Well, at least cut out bread and sugar. He said, but I love bread. I said, yeah, I know.
They all say that.
I know. I can see it. And he said he's
sitting there in your belly.
yeah, and he's an Englishman from England, and he has the accent. And he said, no, he that's what he does. He has to have bread with every meal. And I said, but it's different. It's not the same as it was when you were young. It's changed. The wheat is different. And I started explaining that to him, and I said, so, just cut it out. And he said, I can't. I love it. I love it. And I said, do you really like the diabetes that goes with it? And he said, well, that's kind of, the price you pay, and that's okay. To this day, Dr. Shealy, I don't understand it. So what I'm saying is there's just a little bit of anecdotal evidence of what you were talking about. There are people who are shortening their lives. They're miserable physically, and they're doing it to themselves, and they won't do what's necessary to fix it. And all you have to do, seriously, if you don't want to eat bread, when you go to the supermarket, don't buy bread.
Common sense, the uncommon commodity.
Well, it's really simple. And then when you get home, okay, or if you have a spouse, you say, I'll tell you what, whatever you do, don't buy bread. Okay? Don't buy bread. So don't buy bread, and you remind the person, unless you're going to the store with them, and then you make sure that, together you don't buy bread. Well, then when you get home, there's no bread, so you can't eat it. Dr. Shealy, there was a guy, his name is Robert Allen, and back in 1980, he had some courses that he was training people on how to buy real estate, how to be successful in buying real estate and becoming financially independent. So he was selling these courses. And he had these TV commercials that were showing in lots of cities around the country. And he had a traveling road show where he would train people, and you'd buy the seminar tickets and you'd go and learn. Well, he had a competitor by the name of Al Lowry. And I went to Al Lowry's course, and I learned how to do this. Well, the commercial that stuck in my mind was Robert Allen's commercial. And there was a very tight shot of him on the, with the camera. So it was like a close-up. And the camera kept getting closer and closer and closer as he said the following. He said, I'm going to tell you a secret. If you don't want to be poor, watch what poor people do. And don't do it! And that's what we're talking about. That's a lot of the content of what your book is going to be about, right, Dr. Shealy?
You got it.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back. And we're going to talk about, a famous person, and Kylie Jenner. And I've got a couple comments about Kylie Jenner. And she's had some, lip modifications. And she wanted to change the way her lips look. I'll tell you what happened when we come back. Okay, class. John is engineering the broadcast, doing a fabulous job at GCN in Minnesota. Thank you, John, for taking care of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. So, Dr. Shealy, there's a gal by the name of Kylie Jenner, Kylie Jenner. And she is the daughter of a guy who used to go by the name of William Bruce Jenner. He was born in October 1949. He was an all-American athlete. He was a gold medal winner. He is a gold medal winner. And he was a college football player. He got a knee injury, but he went on to the Olympics. And in 1976, Bruce Jenner, as we know him, won the Olympics in a decathlon, and that's like the what would you call it, the world's greatest athlete title, winning that decathlon. So he was on the cover of, or he was in Playgirl, and he was a model for Playgirl, and not that I've seen Playgirl, but this is what I've read and learned. And so he's had 6 children with 3 wives, Christy Crownover, Linda Thompson, and Kris Jenner. And so one of the daughters of his and Kris Jenner's is Kylie Jenner. Well, she decided that she was unhappy with her lips. And she denied that she had lip augmentation. Nope, didn't have it. Well, yeah, she did. And she came out, and it's and it's been admitted that when she was 15, she was insecure about her lips. And after a boy kissed her and commented on the size of her lips. And so she was really insecure, so she decided to get fillers at the age of 16. So her lips, got real puffy, and I guess she thought it was beautiful. I thought it was horrible. But so at 20 years old, 4 years later, she decided that maybe she should back off. And now what's amazing is she has built an empire that's now worth a beauty products empire that's now worth $420 million. Now, this is through disfiguration. Now, the whole family, to me, is like a circus act. They're all interested in changing the way they look. Bruce Jenner has become Caitlyn Jenner. He's grown boobs, and I don't know if he's had any reproductive surgery or not, but, he's like an openly transgender person. Now, the news says that he's a woman, and we know that that's not true. Whether he calls himself a woman or not, he's biologically, or his chromosomes make him a man, unless we've been able to change those. Dr. Shealy, have we been able to change chromosomes?
Not to that extent, and but you're beginning to think that there is a serious genetic defect in that family line.
Absolutely. I won't get into the race thing, but they have. It seems like there aren't many white guys that are suitable to mate with be mates of the ladies in that clan. But so anyway, it's very strange. It's very strange how they behave and how they select their mates. And I really quite don't understand it. But maybe it's about fame. Maybe it's about fortune. Maybe it's about fame and fortune. I don't really know. But it's very strange how Bruce Jenner, the all-American boy, he wanted to become the all-American girl. And he went through a massive amount of publicity doing it. And I mean, I would think that he'd be ashamed if he thought he was a woman in a man's body, or mentally it was a woman in a man's body. I would think he'd be ashamed of it. No, not him. He went public with his transition, and the media calls him Caitlyn. I guess that's what he wants to be called. He wants to be called Caitlyn Marie Jenner, and now he's dating a girl. So maybe he's having second thoughts. Because how do you figure this out? But anyway, I'd like to talk about the lips. Kylie Jenner's lips, and she had them augmented, and then she backed off. And I'd like to ask you about the dangers of that, if anyone else wants to follow. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we're talking about Kylie Jenner and her lips. And when she was 15 years old, I'm looking at a picture of her on dailymail.co.uk. She was very, very pretty. Okay? She had normal lips. Well, after she decided that her lips weren't big enough, she had some procedures done to make her lips puffy. And then she would enhance the appearance of them by wearing lipstick. So they were out of proportion. They were not normal. Okay? Well, she backed off 4 years later. She's now 20. So she's made the big press, the dailymail.co.uk, that she has undone these big lips. So, Dr. Shealy, from what I understand, there are a couple ways that you can have big lips. One is you can have a treatment called HA, hyaluronic acid, which will cause your lips to puff out. And there's another way, which is silicone. Can you discuss what your thoughts are, dangers, concerns, whatever your thoughts are about doing this kind of a thing from a medical perspective?
It's not a medical problem. It's a psychological problem, in my opinion.
No, I meant from a medical perspective.
I know. Well, anytime you go to do anything in the body, you risk scar and you risk infection. And I mean, I can't imagine distorting your body anywhere. I mean, women will want big breasts. I actually saw 75 women about 15 or 20 years ago, all of whom had some kind of autoimmune disease from the silicone implants. And so that, I don't know what it happens with the lips, but I would think it could. And just the idea of damaging your temple, you're actually destroying the temple in which you live. It's crazy to me.
Dr. Shealy, for someone who wants bigger breasts, let's say a female, for example, and that female wants bigger breasts for whatever silly reason. Sometimes they use these bags filled with silicone, right? Kind of like a sandwich bag, Ziploc bag, but it's not quite like that. But filled with this gooey stuff, right? And
to me, it's both physically and sexually unattractive.
I agree, but here's my concern. So it's in this bag and everything's good because it's contained in this plastic bag. However, the body must be absorbing some of that plastic, okay, over time. Now, that plastic bag would go from room temperature, whatever room temperature is, and once it's in the body to typically 98.6 degrees. So I would think that the plastic the molecules would dislodge, and that would enter the bloodstream, for one thing. And please comment on that. The other thing is, so that person's now wearing a seatbelt, okay, and in the vehicle. And let's say that gal is in a car accident and lurches forward, is restrained by the seatbelt, and the bag breaks. Now what? Serious.
Silicone is not inert in the body, and it causes an immune reaction, and it can cause, quote, autoimmune diseases like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis and things like that. And I actually saw 75 women who were applying for some kind of compensation because of and every one of them actually did have an autoimmune disease.
And so are you saying that it's because of the silicone fillers that leaked into the body? Is that what happened?
Exactly. Apparently, it is not contained. It would probably only be well contained if you put it in a stainless steel container.
Yeah. And so, class, think about that. And so if you have a desire to have some kind of an augmentation, for what you think might improve your appearance in the short run, the long-term risks are...
Shrink your brain instead of enlarging your breast.
Well, and then this isn't for the frugal either, because it can just getting your lips done, to have these injections, cost between $500 and $2,000 to get them done, and then if you have them done with hyaluronic acid, it says that they last. This article I'm reading says that they last for 4 to 6 months. So you're on the. Jeez. So for 4 to 6 months, you could be looking at $1,500 a year to $6,000 a year to get your lips puffy. That's just for the lips. But if you get it done with hyaluronic acid, you can have it undone. They've got a reversing injection that can reverse the procedure almost immediately. So, Dr. Shealy, this hyaluronic acid, is this something that causes the body to react in a fight way to fight the hyaluronic acid because it results in puffiness? Is that what this is, or how does this work?
Well, yeah, I mean, the body does have an innate immune system. And anything foreign. I mean, that's why we get reactions to viruses and bacteria. The immune system attacks it.
Mm-hmm. So, class,
it should attack the brain first.
I was thinking about some of these totally disfigured actresses who have had procedures done, and they wanted to correct what they thought was a small imperfection, And then a few years later, now they've got they've had procedures done. I guess we could call it plastic surgery as a catch-all phrase. But, a few years later, they look terrible. They look freakish. And yet they looked fine to me before they had these procedures done. So, and if you haven't seen this woman known as the Catwoman, just look that up on the internet, see what she looks like. Totally disfigured. I mean, you would feel uncomfortable being in a room with this person. She has disfigured herself so much with plastic surgeries. So, and then we have this human Ken doll guy, and he wanted to look like the Ken doll, and he's even had ribs removed so he could change his chest. What a dumb idea that is. But some surgeon was willing to do it. I can't believe it. Dr. Shealy, if a patient came to you and said, you know what, I think I've got too many ribs. I'd like you to take out 2 of them. I think I'd look more handsome. What would you...
I would say you need a dozen past life therapy sessions. You got to find out which past life you hooked on.
Yeah. But can you imagine, this guy literally did that? He literally had ribs removed, and he's regretting this. And the more surgery he had, the more surgeries he's had, the more he's regretted. It's unbelievable. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this because, to me, the Kardashian / Jenner family is a circus, absolutely a circus of people who are unhappy with the way they look, and they're willing to modify their body at great risk to them to do it. And then there are other people who are saying, wow, I wish I could look like them, and they're following this, this stupid role model of the Kardashians and the Jenner clan.
I wonder if they ever sue them later when they aren't satisfied.
Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting? So, class, really, when you think about dysfunctional families, why would anybody want to emulate that? I don't get it. As a side note, our son went to the Chinese factory outlet, and he wanted to get some frozen items in the frozen food section, and he went to get some of those paper frozen food bags. And in the local Walmart, they don't have them anymore. This has nothing to do with medicine. This has to do with greed. And here's what happened. So our son asks around, and he says, so, you guys used to have these paper bags that you put frozen foods in. I don't see them. I see the racks. What happened? And so the store says, yeah, we don't have them anymore because people would take 20 bags at a time without buying anything frozen. They would just... So this is just an example of greed. People taking things that they shouldn't be taking, and who pays the price? Everybody else. So I just wanted to share that as a side note. Well, Dr. Shealy, I have, and this will take probably a while to do this, but I have an article about Monsanto, and it was written or published by AFP.com/EN news. The headline is, and this is really good news. Now, normally we don't have good news, but I think this is pretty good news. Although it's got a very sad side to it. In order to have this good news, there's someone who's going to be paying a very serious price. And it's called Roundup Pesticide Cancer Link on Trial. And here's the article. I'm going to read it. During more than a century of business, U.S. agrochemical colossus Monsanto has been vilified for products critics say harm people and the environment. The first trial of its kind, a Californian dying of cancer is suing Monsanto, claiming its popular herbicide Roundup caused his disease, a case that could have sweeping ramifications. Monsanto could face massive losses if lawyers show in court that the company's herbicide Roundup caused a groundkeeper's lethal cancer. A jury on Monday is scheduled to begin, that's today, is scheduled to begin hearing pitches from opposing sides with witnesses to follow. We'll talk more about this article. I'll read it, and I'd love to hear Dr. Shealy's comments, because this could be the first domino to go down for Monsanto. What a great thing to have happen, having Monsanto go down. We'll be right back. So to continue on with this article from AFP.com, we're talking about Monsanto. It says the stakes are high for Monsanto, which could face massive losses should a jury order to pay out damages over the product, whose main ingredient is glyphosate, a substance some say is dangerously carcinogenic. Dwayne Johnson, a 46-year-old father of two, says he is sick because of contact with Roundup, which he used for 2 years from 2012 as a groundskeeper at Benicia High School Benicia School District near San Francisco. And goes on to say a major part of the job was spraying Roundup or Ranger Pro, a similar Monsanto product. He sprayed it 20 to 40 times a year, sometimes hundreds of gallons at a time on the school properties. And I'm eliminating some of the words that, we don't need to waste time on. He was diagnosed in 2014. He was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a cancer that affects white blood cells. No longer able to work. 2 years later, he filed suit against Monsanto, accusing the company of hiding the dangers of its product. A key to Johnson's case will be convincing jurors that Monsanto's pesticide is to blame for his illness. His case has been expedited because he currently has only a few months to live, his lawyer said. Now, this lawyer represents hundreds of people who also say that they are victims of glyphosate. Whether the substance causes cancer has been a source of endless debate among government regulators, health experts, and lawyers. Monsanto, a company that is more than a century old, was recently acquired by German-based Bayer for more than $62 billion. Founded in 1901 in St. Louis, Missouri, Monsanto made the artificial sweetener saccharin. The company began producing agrochemicals in the 1940s, now employs 20,000 people around the world, and generates $15 billion in annual revenue. Monsanto was one of the companies which produced a defoliant dubbed Agent Orange, which has been linked to cancer and other diseases for use by U.S. forces in Vietnam, but denies responsibility for how the military used it. The company also made an insecticide, DDT. Roundup, Monsanto's flagship herbicide Roundup was launched in 1976. The company soon thereafter began genetically modifying plants, making some resistant to Roundup. So, Dr. Shealy, that's the essence of this article. Now, this poor man doesn't have much time left. He's dying of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What is that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, it's more serious than Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it is one of the worst, types of cancer, and it does indeed kill you. It's totally destroyed his immune system.
So here we have a man who has that, and is it often found that Roundup is linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? Does that happen?
Unequivocally. I'd love to be on the jury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, Dr. Shealy, that if they had a choice, they would not let you on the jury.
They'd shoot me first.
Well, seriously, I've been at the courthouse during jury selection, and I have never, ever been allowed to participate as a member of the jury. I've always been thrown out. The lawyers each lawyer can throw out, one juror for no reason at all. They can just say, we don't like that guy. He's out of here. And that's what happens to me every time. I get well, they'll say, Mr. Finelli, do you know about, what pain is like? They'll say, are you asking me if I've ever had pain? Yes. Yes, I know what pain is like. I've had pain. Yes, I do know. And then, okay, that's all. And then next thing I know, they call the jury back from the back room, and they say, Mr. Finelli, you're excused. That's what happens to me. And it's happened every time that I've been called for jury duty. I've never been allowed to serve. And I want to serve.
I have 2 lawyer kids that actually they never even call me in when they learn that.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Shealy and I will be right back right after these few short commercial announcements. I'd love to hear more about his thoughts on Monsanto. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us in class. If you'd like to go to his website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, to continue on with the Monsanto discussion, the article that I was reading goes on to say that Monsanto has always denied any link between disease and glyphosate, a substance classified as a carcinogenic in the state of California. And they say they have empathy for anyone suffering from cancer, but the scientific evidence clearly shows that glyphosate was not the cause. And we look forward to presenting this evidence in court. That's according to this article. Now, the only thing that can happen is that as a result of this trial, they can take money from Monsanto and give it to the cancer victim. That's all they can do. But I think it's going to provide a huge shakeup in the industry that will wake up so many other people. And I think that the suits will start mounting more and more and more. Your thoughts, Dr. Shealy?
I only hope so.
Yeah.
I hope the jury has common sense, because they can't listen to it. I wouldn't trust Monsanto to tell me the sun is shining.
Well, if you think back, class, to the tobacco industry when they were testifying before Congress, they were saying the equivalent that cigarettes do not cause cancer. Cigarettes do not cause cancer. They all got up and testified before Congress.
Well, remember, you're too young maybe to remember DDT.
Oh, DDT, no, I remember DDT. I remember that.
And, it was our stupid government finally banned it in this country. Mm-hmm. I mean, after how many decades did they allow it to continue poisoning us?
Right, and who made DDT? Monsanto. Monsanto made DDT. And we've got our own U.S. Senator from the great corrupt state of Missouri, who is known as Mr. Monsanto in my world. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Sharon in Montana, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norm Shealy.
Good morning. I have a feeling I'm changing your topic. I didn't catch the first hour. I was wondering if we could address the topic of depression. And we recently had a close member take their life of our family. And this person was explaining that they have like this huge dark cloud that just came over them, and they just couldn't shake it or get away from it. And it was kind of an ongoing thing for a long time. And they tried some medicines, but that wasn't a good fit, because when they took the medicine, they became real erratic in their behavior. And lately, I know this person was taking a lot of supplements, trying to maybe create a balance in their system. And unfortunately, in the end, it evidently wasn't enough. And so I know, Dr. Shealy, that you deal with neuro stuff, and I was wondering what your take is on depression, and if you've actually seen people get help. By this experience, a lot of people have come, shall I say, out of the woodwork. There's like this whole shadow community of people who are dealing with extreme depression. Some people just feel sadness, but other people feel like this huge darkness on them. And I was kind of wondering what you thought about that, and if you thought there was actually any real hope for these people, because the people who have been sharing their experiences with myself and other family members are saying, we've tried everything, and nothing's worked.
Before you comment, Dr. Shealy, I'd just like to add something. I'm going to be very careful how I say this, Sharon. Dr. Shealy, Sharon is a USA Prepares instructor, and she mentioned that someone took his life, and this person was very, very, very close to Sharon and her husband, very close. And it's very tragic, extremely tragic. And I didn't know at what point we could talk about this on the air. But you're absolutely right, Sharon. This is a very serious topic. And maybe this discussion will help some others. Very tragic for those in your circle. And I don't want to say how close this circle is. That's up to you. But
yeah.
Wow. Very, very tragic, Dr. Shealy. So.
And it's opening up doors to people sharing stuff. I mean, I'm astounded how many people are dealing with this or know somebody very close to them that are dealing with this, not just this kind of general sadness that, read about in the paper, oh, he feels kind of sad or whatever. This is like a huge darkness and overwhelming weight on them that, in theory that, it was not in theory, but in practicality, this person was doing extremely well in their work and was ready for promotions and all kinds of stuff, but it just wasn't enough. So I'm kind of curious if you've got any great, really true help or things that have really helped people in that kind of case.
Well, I've dealt with over 30,000 depressed people, and I first, second, and third do not believe in any antidepressant drug. Mm-hmm. They do a moderate to mild amount of help to some people, but that is offset by the increased risk of suicide when you're taking any antidepressant drug. And so there are 4 articles published saying that if all of the negative research had been, quote, allowed to be published, the net result would be 0. In other words, the pharmacomafia will not allow 75% of all negative studies to be published. They're as bad as Satan. Now, for treatment of depression, there are a number of things that can help. Obviously, since 1975, I have used something called a cranial electrical stimulator. It puts a totally safe little, 1 or 2 milliamps of current at 15,000 cycles across the brain, and it will bring 80% of people out of depression by using that for an hour every morning. The second greatest thing is a combination of tryptophan and a good B complex. That and some lithium orotate, not the drug. I'm talking just about the mineral. The drug, lithium carbonate, sucks. But lithium, they use 900 to 1,200 milligrams, but 20 to 40 milligrams of lithium orotate, a B complex, and 6,000 or more milligrams of tryptophan a day will help many, many people come out of depression. The use of our Chakra Suite PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequency device, also helps amazingly because it puts you into the gamma state. The gamma state is the upbeat, woohoo, in the zone feeling. And, of course, then there's other forms of what I call retraining the brain with biogenics, our self-regulation technique. And a good, and I don't know what percentage I would put into that category, but a really outstanding counselor or psychologist can be a great adjunct. Psychiatrists suck. In fact, I was just, interestingly, it came up at this time. There's an article here from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights that says the fact is the real criminals here are psychiatrists and psychologists. And I agree with them. I've often said we should ban psychiatry totally because they are almost as bad as the antidepressant drugs. But there is great hope if people get the right therapy, but they're not likely to get it at the average physician's office.
Yeah, I'm curious. This seems to have been around forever throughout history. You can read some of these so-called, great famous people who dealt with extreme depression. Do you think there's like a biochemical thing? I know there must be hereditary factors to a certain extent.
Very much biochemical. They don't make serotonin. Serotonin is the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed wake-up hormone. They often, and then they don't make melatonin, so they don't sleep well. they often don't have dopamine, which is also one of the great upbeat biochemicals.
Because, I know, like I said, just from this experience, people open up, and there's a lot of people who tried everything they can think of, and it's not helping them, and they're in that same dark place, and you're thinking, man, how can we stop this? Because it's tragic for the people who are left behind. And
well, to me, that's the greatest, failure of all, because the family is much, much more traumatized, if you will, by suicide than any other kind of death.
Yeah, I would agree, because you try everything you know to do to help the person, and in the end, it's not enough. And I realize that none of us is a perfect cure for everybody, but it's a really hard thing to cope with the fact that everything you tried wasn't enough. And you see it because you're outside as a better perspective that they have this great life ahead and things are going pretty well and, things are coming out, and then they just become overwhelming for whatever reason, can't go on. So you have you had, forgive me if I sound redundant here, but have you actually had people explain this darkness and everything, and by taking this stuff, it helps them?
I've never seen a person what I would call totally cured with antidepressant drugs, but I have seen many, many people cured with tryptophan and the cranial stimulator.
So you feel like it's a lack of certain chemicals in the body that causes this?
Oh, yes. It just...
Yeah, I'm curious. In this cranial stimulation thing, can I kind of get down the practicality, like how much it is and how you get it?
Well, I discovered this in 1975, and I've used it in 30,000 people, and it's with great success. Not 100, 80%. I don't know any drug in the world that's 80% effective.
Right. But how do you get this, and what does it cost?
$700.
Okay.
Cheaper than taking drugs for a year.
Yeah, I agree. In one way.
Sharon, would you like to hold through the break?
Yeah, for just a moment.
Sure. Okay. We're talking about something very serious, class. We're talking about suicide. Suicide close to home. I've got a short comment. It's not very pleasant, but we'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Sharon is with us in Montana. Sharon's a USA Preparedness instructor. Very, very serious, very sad topic. I've never mentioned this on the air. I don't think I've mentioned this hardly at all. But in about the last 3 years, we have had 3 suicides in the USA Preparedness Instructors family. 3 suicides in 3 years. And I'm talking about either a parent or a child of a USA Preparedness instructor has committed suicide in approximately 3 years, the last 3 years. So I haven't mentioned that on the air, but now's the time. And Sharon, I'm so sorry for the loss that you're talking about.
Thank you. I'm curious, though, now, see, I really want to try to avoid this for other people, all right? And it's like, if some kind of good could come from this, or some kind of help for other people could come from this, that would bring some semblance of comfort, So I know that it sounds simple to say $700 for a machine, but I know a lot of people could in no way afford a $700 machine, Is that could be used by multiple people, correct? You could just have it available for different people to use for that cranial stimulator thing?
Well, let's face it, in my opinion, the conventional medical system is abominably bad at treating anything that goes on longer than 6 weeks. Pretty good at acute illness. But it doesn't matter whether it's depression or coronary artery disease or diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. There's no circumstance in which I personally would allow or do what the average physician does for chronic illness.
But could this machine be used by multiple people if you had one?
Well, the cranial electrical stimulator is safe to anybody except I wouldn't use it if you're pregnant or if you have a pacemaker, an implanted electronic device. It won't hurt you, but it might hurt the implant. But it is exquisitely safe.
So, Dr. Shealy, I believe what Sharon is asking is if there were like a village and there were 3 or 4 people who might be at risk of suicide, is it something that could be shared among?
Absolutely. I have families sharing it with friends all the time. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of curious. I wondered if that were available, if people tried it, if it helped them. Because, like I said, this is actually incredibly more common than I realized. And, like you have something like this.
Sure. 40% of Americans at any given time are depressed. Now, not all of them are serious. 40% are depressed, and another 40% are subclinically depressed. So only 20% of people are happy at any given time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not normally a depressed personality, so this has kind of been an eye-opener. But, okay, well, that's, basically I was just trying to get an idea, and you could buy that machine off your website, is that correct?
Yes, it's called, it was produced originally by Saul Liss, an engineer. When he died about a dozen years ago, Fisher Wallace bought it. There's only one problem with this device. They didn't take my advice. All the research practically was done by me. They tell people to turn it off. They have it go off after 20 minutes. It takes a minimum 40 minutes to be effective, and preferably 60. So you do have to turn it on 3 times, but it should be used before noon.
Before noon. Oh. And can I ask why that would be before noon? Just curious.
I'm sorry?
I was just curious why would you need to use it before noon? Just curious.
Well, because you want your serotonin to go up maximally by noon or even earlier so that it'll produce melatonin in the evening.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because, okay.
Sharon, would you like to hold?
No, actually, I think I'm done, but thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sharon, may I ask you this? Would you consider doing a broadcast at some future date about the same topic?
Possibly. Get back with me on it. I don't know.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Our prayers are with you, Sharon, and your husband.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Dr. Shealy, you mentioned for someone who is depressed, tryptophan, I believe 6,000 milligrams per day. Any particular time that should be consumed? Morning, afternoon, with meals, without?
Early morning. I mean, I think any time up to 10 o'clock is okay. I would prefer not taking it too much later than that because it can keep you wired at night. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about doing it in the morning is that it can be converted into melatonin in the evening.
Okay. Is there anyone who should not take tryptophan?
I don't know of a contraindication to tryptophan. Now remember, you do have to take a good B complex and ideally a little bit of lithium orotate to make it work optimally.
Okay. And lithium orotate, I believe you mentioned 20 to 40 milligrams per day.
Yeah, depending on the size and severity of the problem. But lithium orotate is good for everyone. I've given it to 5-year-olds with attention deficit disorder. And by the time you get to adulthood, depending upon the severity, anywhere from 20 to 40 milligrams.
Mm-hmm. And, you had mentioned that years ago on this broadcast, and I put my mom on about 15 milligrams a day, roughly, between, I guess around 15 milligrams. And it was one of those tablets that I had to cut into multiple pieces, and it seemed to work really well for her. It seemed to boost her memory and her cognitive function. Is that what it does?
Oh, yeah. Basically it helps you make, in my opinion, if I had to choose only one neurochemical, it would be serotonin. Mm-hmm. Now, interestingly, by the way, serotonin is a marker of personality. That is, you've heard of type A and type B personalities.
Yes.
I can't say unequivocally about you, but I'm type A, and I suspect you are. Mm-hmm. My resting serotonin is high, and when I used the cranial electrostimulator for the first time in I think it was 76, my serotonin went up to 5 times the upper limit of normal. So I have a natural tendency to produce lots of serotonin. But type Bs still produce adequate serotonin, but they don't overreact as much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just read, let's see if I can find a more, okay, it says, the internet says type A and type B are two trait classifications of personality. Type A individuals are aggressive, ambitious, controlling, highly competitive, preoccupied with status, workaholics, hostile, and lack patience.
They don't have to be hostile or aggressive. They just are hyperactive. They are engaged, if you will, enthusiastically in life. That's the way I look at type A's.
And I do too.
Despite the fact that the original paper on this, a book on this, talked about type A behavior causing heart attacks, the long-term results are that type A's live longer than type B's.
Mm-hmm. And type B, it says, type B people are relaxed, less stressed, flexible, emotional, expressive, and have laid-back attitude. In
other words, they don't participate as fully in life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the time, my foot's to the floor. I've got more things to do, in terms of speed. Not when I'm driving, but, I'm deliberate. I've got a lot of things that I want to accomplish. I don't think I have as much time to accomplish them as I'd like, so I try to optimize and maximize what I get done. And I think that might be an indicator of a type A personality.
Well, I consider it no time for being bored.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, Dr. Shealy, I think I have a semi-scientific measurement of the sun. And let me tell you what that is. So we have these, and this relates to medicine, ultimately. So we have these solar panels, and they are aimed at the sun, and they don't move. So they're fixed. And I've been watching the power generation from these solar panels. So, cloudy days, we generate less electricity here at the farm than sunny days. Our typical power consumption per month is about 1,000 kilowatts. And if you say a month is about 30 days, that'd be about 33 kilowatts a day. That's how many kilowatts we'd use per day. Well, we're able to generate roughly 32 to 34 kilowatts a day. And we had a peak a few days ago. And the temperatures in LA, Los Angeles, were 108 degrees, 113 degrees in Berkeley. So in LA, 108 degrees, and in Berkeley, California, 113 degrees at the Bob Hope Airport. So downtown LA, 108, the Bob Hope Airport in Berkeley, California, 113 degrees. That's pretty darn hot. It was a record. Well, at the same time, I noticed that the solar panels were generating 44 kilowatts that day. Way more than the typical of 32 to 34 kilowatts that we normally see on a bright sunny day. So we'll see less on a cloudy day, less on a hazy day, less on an overcast day, less on a rainy day, okay? Less when it's snowing. But the same day that we had this record-breaking heat in California, which was last Friday, we generated 44 kilowatts of electricity here. Never before have we done that. It was a record, by far. So typically, 32 to 34 kilowatts, we generated 44. At the same time, I noticed that our tomato plants, which are right outside the back door, which I water every day. So I've been watching their growth. I want them to grow. I want them to produce tomatoes. And I've noticed that the leaves are curling, really curling. So they were in distress. Nothing that I did. Okay? I didn't make any changes. The sun's rays were extraordinarily high. So my question is, I guess I have several questions. And it relates to, what does that mean to us, Dr. Shealy, when I am certain absolutely certain, without looking at the weather channel, if we had it, we don't have it, without looking at the internet, I know for a fact that the sun's rays were extraordinarily high that day. And they seem to be staying almost as high. Not quite, but almost. What does that mean for us as humans?
Well, I think the question that we're in a climate-changing time. I question whether it's due just to human consumption, because according to all ancient records, the Earth has gone through times of extreme heat to burning, followed by glaciation. So I consider this the pre-glaciation phase.
Okay. Are there any precautions that we should take regarding these extreme, wild swings of sunlight and shade, for example, or cloudiness?
Well, you have to be somewhat more careful of being out of the sun. I mean, I happen to be a sun lover, if you will, and I can handle 4 hours on almost any kind of day. I'm not sure I can handle 8 hours all day, but then, of course, the real heat doesn't begin about 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think I can handle that. I certainly handle 4 hours.
Our son was raking hay, and he was in a tractor with an open cab, but it had a sunshade. So he was out of the sun on this, it's a pretty big tractor, with like a 15-foot rake. And he was raking the hay, and I was baling the hay. So I was in an enclosed cab, filtered air conditioning, and at the end of the day, and Mrs. Finelli and our other son, were out on one of those four-wheel devices, and they were with where they could pick up stickers and things like that. And at the end of the day, everybody, including me, and they said I had it the easiest because I was in the air-conditioned cab, we were all exhausted, absolutely exhausted from the heat. But we spent 8 hours at least in the sun. And is that a bad thing, Dr. Shealy, to overdo the sun, or is it okay, or are there long-term effects?
With the person and the skin, and whether or not they're taking astaxanthin. Many people burn, but here I went out. I think the first really warm day for gardening in my garden, and I spent 3 hours that day, and I don't burn. And the reason I don't burn is that I take astaxanthin all year.
Yeah, Mrs. Finelli does too, and she's blonde and blue. So, do you recommend that those who are blonde-haired, blue-eyed, fair-skinned, do they require more astaxanthin than those who are of darker complexion?
Oh yes, no question about it. And I'm green-eyed, not blue-eyed, and I'm not blonde, but I take 30 milligrams, and that protects me. I don't know whether someone Sandy's size would need more than 30 milligrams, but I would think that much would protect her pretty well.
Okay. Breast cancer in men. Wow. I mean, I read this article, and I thought, I don't remember hearing about breast cancer in men. When I was growing up, we had, one guy in a class of, let's say, 25 elementary school students who was heavier than the rest. One guy, and the term was husky. Back then, they just said husky. And that meant, a guy who was a little more, overweight, if you will. Well, now man boobs are common, and now we're learning that breast cancer in men, and guys are having their breasts lopped off, through surgery because they have breast cancer. Can we talk about that when we come back, Dr. Shealy?
Of course.
Yeah. Guys, and then we're going to talk about chemicals that may cause this. We'll be right back. Dr. Shealy is with us, Norm Shealy. And if you'd like to go to the website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, how can we call and get in touch with you at your clinic in Springfield, Missouri?
417-351-5221.
Okay, class, if you'd like to call, make an appointment, if you'd like to have a consultation with Dr. Norman Shealy or set up an appointment to meet with him at the clinic in Springfield, Missouri, 417-351-5221. 417-351-5221. Website, normshealy.com. And Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article about this man who was 68 years old, and he found a bump on his chest, a tiny bump, and so he went to the doctor. He was diagnosed with breast cancer. This is a guy. And so his wife wanted him to have it checked out, and he had a mastectomy. So he had this lump, this tumor, and the tissue from his breast removed. And he opted out of chemotherapy because his wife suffered through it and ultimately died of ovarian cancer. But after 4 years, he just had the mastectomy, and he's cancer-free. So I understand that it's about 99% of breast cancer cases are women, but a little less than 1% happens to men. And that's something that didn't happen before, Dr.
It's
Shealy.
because the estrogen, estrogenation of the world by Monsanto and other poison companies. Remember, the sperm count has decreased from 150 million to 40 million in the last 70 years. Mm-hmm. And the estrogen in men has increased tremendously because of detergents and plastics.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Shealy, can we look at it this way? If we have ants and bugs in the house or bees and we have sprays and we say, well, just let's use an insecticide and let's kill them. If we've got plants that we don't want and we use a herbicide and we just kill them, just from the logic of it, how is that possible that it could be safe for us? How is that possible?
Well, you want a real answer? If it's poison to an insect, it's poison to people. It's that simple.
Yes. Yes.
If it's a poison to a plant, it's poison to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's poison to life.
Yes. And so the chemical bisphenol A, I'll spell that for you, class, B-I-S-P-H-E-N-O-L, space, then the letter A, referred to as BPA, capital B, capital P, capital A, is found in the linings of some canned foods. It's a plastic lining. And additionally, it causes, according to an article I've been reading, inflammation of the gut and bacteria. And it causes problems with the digestive system. Now, where is this bisphenol A? Well, it's in plastic water bottles, it's in the linings of cans, and it's in other places. So I guess you've got to figure out how you're going to grow your garden in your backyard and avoid eating as much processed foods as possible. And one of the things I've been thinking about, Dr. Shealy, is Teflon is really slippery stuff. And people use Teflon on the cooking surfaces of their pots and pans. If Teflon is so slippery, what makes it stick and not become absorbed by the food? That's just, I guess, a rhetorical.
I don't have it.
And you've got to think about who's cooking your food, what's it being cooked on. And Dr. Shealy, I've got to tell you, I am not excited about going out to eat in restaurants anymore.
Ever
because,
again.
Yeah, risky, right? Yeah. Well, Dr. Shealy, we've reached the end of today's broadcast. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.